Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and all ages, it's Friday, so you know what time it is. It's time for the Midwest Anime Show to kick off. Your boy DOC representing Midwest, Texas. Shout out to the 972s. You know what I'm saying? 469s. Hey, with my boy Mr. Conspiracy. Shout out to Oklahoma OKC 45918. You know what I'm saying? Out there. And then we got the professor here. We short, you know what I'm saying? We short a man today, but hey, as in all business, the show must continue, whether somebody's here or not. So we are doing part 2, ladies and gentlemen, and we are going into Dragon Ball. Last week, just in case you missed recap, we talked about DBZ. You know, the probably one of the more fan favorites. Now we're going to the originator. You know what I'm saying? The beginning. So, since Dragon Ball Dragon Ball Z isn't all my forte, I'm going to let my boy Mr. Conspiracy start us off because this is more his world on this one. So, I'm going to let you hand the mic over to you. You know what I'm saying? It is your world right now, Mr. Conspiracy. So, take us.
Get that DLC. I mean, I could talk about it all, but basically, Dragon Ball is the start of everything. When Bulma first finds Goku in the forest, and that's when you find him as a child. I think Goku was like 11 when she actually finds him, and she's 16. If I'm not mistaken, about 15, 16 years old, and that's when they first meet. Is in Dragon Ball. And actually, in the first episode, she's actually looking for a Dragon Ball, trying to collect all of the Dragon Balls. And this is the first time that you actually see the Dragon Radar that she created. And Goku has no idea what the Dragon Ball that he possesses actually is. He thinks that it's a keepsake from his grandpa and that it's holding his grandpa's, basically his spirit. And so every time the ball glows, he thinks that it's his grandpa talking to him. So when he goes out fishing, he actually comes back with the fish, and then he gets run over by Bulma while she's driving some hover. I think it's like a hover car. And that's when they meet. He attacks the hover car, and she has no idea who she's dealing with. She thinks it's just a regular boy. Turns out that he's some crazy martial arts kid with a tail. So he talks to her, realizes that she's from the city. He has never seen a girl before in his life. That's how you find out that this dude has just been in the force and raised in the force all his life. He hasn't really actually seen another human being before, especially of the opposite sex. So he wants to hear all about the big city. He wants to know about other humans. So he invites her to his little cottage, his little home that you actually see in Dragon Ball Z, the beginning of Dragon Ball Z, when it's kind of been built out when he first married Chi-Chi and had Gohan. And so they actually go back to his little home, and she explains to him what the Dragon Balls are, because she's asking for his Dragon Ball and he won't give it up. So she has to explain to him what they are, and then she invites him on the adventure to go ahead and collect all of the Dragon Balls, because she realizes how strong he is and that she may face dangers and she needs basically a bodyguard. So she manipulates Goku into going with her and protecting her just to get all of these Dragon Balls, because she wants to make a wish for what? The perfect boyfriend. I mean, a girl 15 years old, what else you gonna wish for, right? You know, maybe a whole bunch of clothes for the closet. You know, that's about it. A new wardrobe, you know.
Don't get us canceled over here, Mr. Conspiracy. Be easy.
Clothes, man.
You trading that
clothes,
lot,
brother.
You trading that lot. Be careful.
Conspiracy, you doing all right, brother? You doing all right?
Yeah, like...
keep it going, man. Keep it going. You doing all right?
Hey, man, we don't know what's offensive these days. You know what I'm saying?
Man, I ain't got that trigger button yet, man. Let me create that. Hold on, man. Maybe next episode. And so that's where the true story adventure of Dragon Ball begins, going into Dragon Ball Z. So that's when they go out on the adventure, and because they're going to go collect the Dragon Balls, that's how they meet Master Roshi. That's how they meet Yamcha, who's an actual desert bandit. That was his first actual character, was a desert bandit. That's how he actually meets him and Plar. So it was the adventure, the actual start of the adventure of collecting the Dragon Balls is how he meets all of these other people, all of these main characters that you love in Dragon Ball Z. That's the whole start. It starts with those two going out on this adventure. And for me, Dragon Ball is, from a story standpoint, I think is done a little better, but I'm not gonna lie to you, it has a lot of filler. To be honest, it has filler in there between arcs, between like really good arcs, right? But for Dragon Ball, I think that from a power level standpoint, they really don't go into power levels until Dragon Ball Z. This is more of they're true martial arts, right? Like they're actually not super powerful, not a whole bunch of energy and like key beams and things like that. Like they're more on a level playing field with other creatures or other races on the planet. So Goku, even though he is a Saiyan, he doesn't even know what he is yet until Dragon Ball Z. But him being what he is, he's not even the strongest on the planet at this point. There's actually people stronger than him until he trains with Master Roshi for the first time, meets Krillin, his best friend, um, who's basically been kicked out of the monk temple at
Yeah.
this point after
Yeah.
getting bullied. So that's pretty funny. Like if you truly want to love Krillin's character, you need to watch Dragon Ball when he first arrives, so you can see the character he should have been moving forward. Krillin was a phenomenal character when he first actually was shown in Dragon Ball compared to the coward he became in Dragon Ball Z. I really don't like what they did to him. If you really look at Dragon Ball and then Dragon Ball Z, I really didn't like that. But you also see Chi-Chi. You actually meet her as a kid several times when she actually meets Goku for the very first time. That was pretty interesting. She's totally different as a kid than what she is as an adult. She's not as angry. She's more of a crybaby than anything. But she's head over heels for Goku. So when she sees him, they're about 11, 12 years old when they meet, and she's head over heels, and she believes that Goku is dead set in love with her at first sight. I don't know where she got that from, but she honestly believes that, and she stuck with that until the day that they got married at some point. But for me, Dragon Ball is really, really done well, and I love it. I've watched it multiple times, over and over and over again, and I will continue to actually do so because they stick with the basic fighting abilities instead of just power levels and keys. So that's my take on Dragon Ball.
Basically, what you got? What you got? What you got?
Well, conspiracy went to enough detail. I really don't need to rehash anything, but as far as the Dragon Ball universe or whatever, it's probably my favorite over Dragon Ball Z, over GT. I haven't really seen it much of Super, but just as far as from a story standpoint, just kind of fleshing out all the characters. Not really anybody being OP, super powered, like they kind of go, I think, a little too far probably in Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT. You kind of one up. Once you go Super Saiyan, now you got 2, 3, 4 blue. You just got to keep one up in what you're doing, and you really don't have to do that in Dragon Ball. Just it's kind of more grounded in martial arts and all the martial arts tournaments. All of the interesting characters that they introduce. Got my boy Krillin. I gotta kind of come defend him. He didn't become a coward in Dragon Ball Z. They just kind of really, I'd say, phased out his character. They kind of took him to, as a human being, he could only get so powerful because he couldn't go Super Saiyan 1, 2, 3, and 4. I guess with a Namek, you had an excuse that he's an alien, so okay, maybe you can push him a little bit further. But all the humans, they can only go so far, so he just kind of retired from being a Z fighter, and so he didn't become a coward. He just couldn't, keep up, with everybody else's power levels. He couldn't turn into an android or make him a mutant to kind of make him more powerful. So he just stayed a human being, and it kind of phased him out, man. But he was a fan favorite in Dragon Ball, and just an excellent character. And I forgot about Oolong, that pig. Had the
Yep.
original series. He kind of phased him out in Dragon Ball Z again. He started going Super Saiyan and all these fighting aliens and stuff like that. He really didn't fit. But man, it's an excellent series. It's lighthearted because everybody's basically kids and teenagers, so it's more lighthearted. It's more comical. And so I think just Dragon Ball is just an excellent series. It's really stood the test of time. Like Mr. Conspiracy. I've seen the series 3 or 4 times. Maybe 5 times. I've seen Dragon Ball Z. I've probably seen Dragon Ball Z about the same amount of times. But Dragon Ball, to me, hands down, is the best out of all of them, just from a story standpoint. So that's my take on Dragon Ball.
I think I definitely think one of the coolest things about Dragon Ball, where I'm gonna tell you, I think the writing does better, is you always had a great villain. You know what I'm saying? And the story's always had a great villain, because before Tien and Chaozu are your friends, they're your enemies. You know what I'm saying? They're your enemies. I mean, and when you look at the first time, another thing I like about that part of the show is that Goku, I mean, to y'all's point, is beatable. He loses to Tien in that tournament. You know what I mean? But I mean, and to your point, they flesh out characters really well. So I love that you see Krillin and Goku training. They're doing the turtle training. With the turtle shells, they're doing all these. It's almost like you take the Karate Kid, wax on, wax off. We're doing the
Yeah.
turtle shell, we getting out here. You got all them doing all this random training that doesn't really seem like a whole lot until they actually get into a tournament. You've been training with these weights, with this turtle shell, and they become more powerful. Krillin initially doesn't necessarily, I would say he doesn't believe in his abilities, as much. He's not as confident. He gets there, but in the beginning, he's not as confident. And I mean, it's a silly show to a degree. I mean, like you said, people ain't flying around. They ain't trying to break the speed of light. They're not one upping each other. Hey, you went Super Saiyan 1. Next episode, I got to go Super Saiyan 2. It wasn't all like, I mean, to your point, it wasn't all that crazy. I mean, we didn't really start getting into folks flying around and doing it till Piccolo shows up, and then Goku's got to train with Khan. That's when we start getting into oh man, we going to the next level, we screaming, we getting mad, that's when that kicks. Before that, they just some characters learning how to fight. You like, the Kamehameha, Master Roshi can do. I mean, so it's like, it's little aspects of it. You never expect Goku to go from where he is in Dragon Ball to all the way where he is, where he's basically a god, on the other end of the stream over here. So, like you said, I enjoy the series because there's a lot of to me, it's so well thought out. With the how many seasons with Dragon Ball? Was it 5?
Oh
I
no,
can't remember
there's
I don't remember.
I can't remember how many seasons it was because I know the last one is when he fights Piccolo, but I don't remember how many actual series it actually was for Dragon Ball. But again, I agree with you. It's probably it's better written because the other series ain't worried about character development. Dragon Ball Z, these people are established. The new characters will establish them as we go along. But you really see the Z fighters, like you said, Yamcha. You see all these folks, Tien, Chaozu. You see everybody in their infancy. All the humans are like, oh man, these guys are strong. Till you see them fighting Piccolo, and Piccolo whooping that butt, Goku, you always want to know, well, why does Goku have a tail? Why is he so strong? So it's like they left this little hidden detail in there. It'll come into play, way later in the series. But it's because you never know why the dude is so strong. Like, I always had wondered that before you get into Z, and it's like, oh, he's not human, he's a Saiyan. Because you got in that show, you don't know what Goku is in the beginning. Because hell, they got fuzzy bears running around. You got all kinds of stuff. So you don't know what Goku really is.
Wolfman. No.
You can see all kind of weird creatures. So you don't know what Goku is. Yeah, I mean, is this just a normal character part of it? You don't know. So I like that the way he wrote it. Like I'm leaving you all this room to work with later. For his vision of the character. And I mean, until Professor's point on your boy Krillin, like I wouldn't say Krillin's a coward. I agree that he just. I mean, there's only so. I mean, the show was never to be about humans, and I think that was part of the problem. I mean, the best thing they could be like, is this is his best friend, and that relationship, is needed in Dragon Ball Z, obviously, to go to the legendary Super Saiyan. But in the beginning of the show, he's just his rival. I mean, now there's some things I like about the show that never change. First of all, Master Roshi don't need to be anywhere near school. 500 feet, do the pervert. You know what I'm saying? He always a pervert. You know what I'm saying? Your
He
boy
like
Master
kids,
Roshi,
man. He didn't mess with the kids, man. He
Yeah,
trained
he
the
like
kids.
kids,
He ain't
man.
mess with them down. He like the young. He like the
kids,
20-year-old girls,
listen,
man.
all I know what he was into. So look, I asked the question, but I mean, like I said, I just enjoyed it, man. I enjoyed, when Tien and Goku were fighting. I mean, even though it was, baby Goku is what I refer to that as. Goku's a little kid, he's fighting this grown man, and then, Tien's got the third eye. And hell, Chaozu, I was like, man, y'all a little weird, like a pale ghost with some dots floating around. A lot of these people, but
Yeah.
hey, that's me though. Like you say, it's and then Yamcha, you know what I'm saying? You in love with him some Boomer. He
Oh
love him
man.
some.
Now
Yep.
you got to remember, man. Like he first originally when he came on board, his only weakness was that he couldn't talk to girls. So every time he saw
Yeah.
Bulma, he had to run away. No matter if he was fighting Goku about to beat him, as soon as Bulma showed up, he had to run off because he couldn't talk to girls. He couldn't be around them. He broke out.
Yeah, see, so I mean, so you got that kind of stuff. So like I said, overall, I mean, for the series for me, it's a great if you don't know anything about anime, it's a great starter anime. I mean, now it's aged with time. Now I don't know if they've come out with like updates, kind of like how they did Dragon Ball Z Kai or whatever, where
Yeah,
they
yeah, Dragon Ball
remastered
Z Kai.
everything.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
think they've done that with
they
Dragon
haven't.
Ball. I
No,
don't think they
they
ever
haven't.
remastered it. So I mean, you may complain about the graphics and I mean the way it's drawn back then, but as far as the show goes, this is one of them the shows I can let my son actually watch this show. This ain't some stuff I got to be like, oh God, we gonna have to censor this episode. I don't have to
Yeah.
have no weird explanation. Why is this character acting like that? Yeah, I don't want that. So
Yeah.
to me, if you have kids, it's a great starter anime. Hey, you want to know about anime? Dragon Ball is a good start, man. So, and it's good. I mean, hell, like you said, it stood
Yeah.
the test of times. I mean, for something to be around as long as it's been around with the character development they've given characters, I look. This ain't for this show. I know wherever part 3 or part 4 to this ends up coming out. I'll say this now. Gohan got the Krillin treatment after he was a kid. You know what I'm saying? When he became an adult, he got the Krillin treatment. Is what we're gonna refer to that as. They started kind of phasing him out, which I thought was stupid, but again, for another show. So there's some things they had to work on, but overall, like Mr. Conspiracy said, it's probably the best written out of all the Dragon Ball spinoffs and everything else like that. Because I think Dragon Ball, didn't it make 2 movies, right? Dragon Ball made 2,
No,
or was
Dragon
it
Ball
2?
made like a lot of movies. They
Okay,
made
I
several.
couldn't
They made
remember
several
how.
movies.
Okay, yeah, because one of the big things we didn't even talk about Dr. Giro and the Red Ribbon Army.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
One of
You
the
know what I'm
main villains.
saying?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I mean, you talk about the red. I mean, but I give credit to the creator, right? Because he took the Red Ribbon Army. That plays a big role later in GT. What Goku did to the Red Ribbon Army plays a large role going into Dragon Ball Z. I said GT. I'm sorry. Into Dragon Ball Z, and then further on, down the line with that Red Ribbon Army and the androids. So, like I said, it's so well written that you were able to take things from those seasons in Dragon Ball, and he was able to expand the universe into Dragon Ball Z, gave us more characters, and it all tied in together. I can't think of a time where he wrote something for Dragon Ball that didn't tie in with Z or Super. Now GT, is not canon, so but it all always tied together. So I was, I mean, like I said, I was very impressed. You know what I'm saying, Mr. Conspiracy. So Dragon Ball. I mean, it's a big show, so we had to break this up into parts because we could talk about this for hours on end, but it's just so large. We have to focus on one per podcast. So my next question then is, Mr. Conspiracy, what is your favorite fight to come out of Dragon Ball?
Oh man, to come out of Dragon Ball, honestly, it would probably have to be. That's a tough one, man, because I like a lot of them. I'm gonna have to say when Goku and Tien fought the first time at the World Tournament, not the second, but the first time.
Man, I'm gonna be a hater because that's the fight I love the most myself, man. I'm gonna be a hater. I'm back by a little. Go ahead, man. I was gonna talk about it. Go ahead, man.
The reason why that is, so spoiler, Goku loses that because that's the championship fight, and Goku loses that. And he barely lost. I mean, he lost by and out of bounds.
Yep.
And so for me, what really made that special was the back and forth, but you really saw the technique and the abilities that they had and the techniques that they actually were specialists at. And it wasn't so much like in Dragon Ball Z, okay, I got this, I'm in a crazy moment, so let me power up and go to the next level for me to get out of my predicament, right? It was nothing like that. It was a win or lose. This was not a plot armor type of battle, and the techniques and the abilities that they really shown to me was phenomenal. Like you could actually see it. It was not a speed of light like you were talking about earlier, DLC. It wasn't a speed of light type of thing. They were actually fighting in what you would see in like a 1960s, 1970s kung fu movie. You actually saw the actual technique that they were using, and you could actually see their training, up to that point, to the best of their ability, that they're truly showing you that I've trained hard. And they are going, just at it. It wasn't okay, I beat you this one, now you beat me that one. It wasn't nothing like that. Like they were just going at it, and they were going at it nonstop. And they were pulling out, I would say, trump cards here and there to kind of get you to understand that they were not your average humans, because you didn't know what actual Goku was at that point. So people just thought he was human. They were not your average humans, but they basically had learned everything that their masters had taught them, and they surpassed their masters at that point, is what you really thought at that point. When they used their special techniques, when they basically said, okay, we're not giving up, we have heart. Even though Tien was a villain at that point, he basically showed a lot of spirit and a lot of heart. You couldn't hate him for him being a villain, because he just gave it his all for that tournament. Even though he was what he was, he did, what he was supposed to do, and that was to show his true strength and ability and his techniques. And I thought that it was a phenomenal fight all the way to the end. So,
Okay, Professor, you know what I'm saying? What you got for us?
Man, I don't know that I have a favorite fight, man, out of the whole series. Him and the T is definitely up there. His fight with Yamcha, the Wolfang Fist. I just, that was one of my favorites. So I really don't have a favorite fight, man. It's just I love, all the tournaments. When he fought Master Roshi, he was dressed up in that wig, like supposed to be like Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
And so I don't really have a favorite fight, man. It was just kind of a collective, like Miss Conspiracy said. It was kind of like a kung fu, martial arts movie. It wasn't just, people disappearing and reappearing and, all this stuff like that. Of course they did have, they were fast like that, but, it was more martial arts fighting, even though they did have some special abilities. And so, I can't pick just one out of everything, but yeah, Tien and Goku they definitely probably was the top echelon as far as the fights were concerned in that tournament.
I can definitely say, since Mr. Conspiracy brought up the TM fight, I'm not going to use the TM fight, but I will say the fight against Piccolo Senior, not Piccolo Junior, not to be confused, not to confuse the two, because they're two different beings. Piccolo Senior, he ends up, that fight right there, because he ended up having to kill him. So that tournament was a little bit different, because that Goku, it was 3 years later, he was a little bit more polished. He had been training, he goes to fight King Piccolo, and King Piccolo was a monster, period. He was a beast, man. Goku wins that, at the very, very last minute. Like, King Piccolo was just who he was. He's evil, but it was a great fight. And I was like, they were like, hey, we're going to make him come back no matter what. So Piccolo Jr., let me shoot my egg out at the end, of the fight, and, we're going to take it there. But, it's one of many fights they had in Dragon Ball, like I said, because the two TN fights, because you got the first one where Goku loses in turn, and you got the second one during the King, before he fights King Piccolo, and TN's like, I'm going to use my special ability, make all these clones, and Goku at this point has surpassed him. That 3 years, whatever Goku was doing in those 3 years, whatever training he's doing, put him at a whole nother echelon, and I like the fact that he struggled. I'm not saying he didn't struggle before, but he wasn't a battle junkie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he wasn't a battle junkie yet. No.
He wasn't like, I'm going to sacrifice everything to go fight this dude. it doesn't matter, and it wasn't like, I just got to be the strongest. And, it doesn't matter about it. It wasn't all that crazy. Like you said, it was like you took a old 1960s, 1970s Kung Fu movie, break it up into a series, for little kids to like. And that's a lot of what you got, man. The fighting was excellent. Like I said, people ain't teleporting. People could barely fly. I don't think you start seeing people fly. Chao Su could fly. He got telekinetic abilities and stuff like that. But
He was the
for the
only
most,
one, at
yeah,
that time.
it wasn't a normal thing for people to be able to fly in the air and do all this other stuff they were doing. You don't really start seeing that, till Goku's a little bit older, and then the fight with King Piccolo, I can fly. So, it's like we got to raise the stakes a little bit. But again, the fights were legitimately fights, and it wasn't, oh, wait, Professor went Super Saiyan 1. Therefore, you've angered me, and I shall go to Super Saiyan 2 to be able to have one of that, man. It was, you bloody, you battle, people getting the crap whooped out of it. It wasn't no, nothing special. So, like I said, I'll go with the King Piccolo fight for that one, just because my boy Mr. Conspiracy stole
Well,
TM fight off my hand.
I wanna twist this around, DLC. I wanna actually know, because we know that it was more for kids, comical. So Professor, we're gonna start with you on this one. I want to know, what was the funniest fight for you?
I don't even know. I don't even think of it like, as far as, a funny fight is concerned. So I don't know, nothing's really coming to mind. You posed the question, so let me.
Okay, I'll go first. So I should rephrase it like the most comical fight is what I should say. One that comes to mind for me, but I'm not going to pick it because DOC might pick it. So I will say one of the most comical fights for me, for people who may not know, that Yajirobe actually was a serious, successful martial artist, and he was a champion wrestler during Dragon Ball. He was actually a pretty good fighter, and when he fought King Piccolo's henchman, I think he was a dragon. When they were hunting down the list of people who fought in the martial arts world tournament that previous year, they actually ran across Goku and Yajirobe. And Goku had eaten Yajirobe's fish because he was hungry in the forest. So him and Yajirobe got into it, and then he was like, dude, you owe me some food. And they kind of became like somewhat of friends, like a hate-love relationship. And then the next episode, they butt heads and meet each other again, and that's when Yajirobe was like, oh, hey, man, like, you took that thing down. I've been chasing it for a while. Well, he had got through fighting King Piccolo's henchman, which was like a dragon being. Goku was like, oh, man, my bad. He was like, hey, I'm eating him. Goku was like, what? He said, no, I'm eating him. And so Goku was like, okay, well, he's yours. So they fought. Yajirobe beat him, and in the next scene, he was eating the dude. He was eating him. I thought that was hilarious. So that right there, I think, was a very comical moment, just because of how they actually broke it down. Because the dude was like, wait a minute, we talking about, dude, I'm alive. What do you mean you're going to eat me? He's mine. I'm going to eat him. Let me fight him. I'm going to eat him. So I thought that was just comical. Now, there's one that happened in the martial arts tournament, but I want to see if DOC get that one,
So I'm gonna go with Krillin versus Bacteria.
That's why I didn't say it. That's why I didn't say it.
You know what I'm saying? So you gotta, yeah, that dude, that disgusting, nasty body odors, that fight, that was just it was a funny fight. Because you're traumatized because the dude is funky. The dude is nasty. So it's a funny fight. It's probably one of the funniest, I think, from Dragon Ball, just because it's like, who thought? I know you need your comedy in the show, but why are you fighting this dude who's funky like this? Like, he just nasty. First of all, let's be real. Wouldn't nobody in this room, that's like the equivalent of seeing somebody who's dirty, ain't showered, ain't nothing. They like, we're gonna fight in this tournament. First of all, where's the Clorox? Why nobody sprayed his brother down? You just can't be wandering around. It was a funny fight because it's just like this big old dude and this small little kid, but he funky though. God, so I would have to say that would probably be the funniest fight in Dragon Ball. There's a couple. I mean, there's a couple of other ones. Because Yamcha versus Kami, that could be considered comical.
Oh
You know
yeah.
what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, that's right. When he
I
dressed up as a human just to
yeah,
be into the
and he acted all, like he don't know and he hurting shot. I mean, so I mean, there's a lot of little funny, gimmicky stuff like that in Dragon Ball. Again, they kept it light, for the kids, for the family, So I would say there. So that's what I would say, Mr. Conspiracy. There's a lot of little funny fights like that. See, where Bacterium left off, Mr. Satan picked up at. You know what I'm saying? Like minus being funky. He became after the Cell saga and everything, he becomes your constant comic relief that never goes away after that. So and they was like, "Hey man, this Bacterium dude, people love him. We need somebody else dumb nonsense." So that's what
yeah.
that's what
Gotta
I
keep it
got for
light.
you. Yeah, you gotta keep it light, man. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I
There's a bunch.
think that one thing you didn't mention, DLC, like in that fight, I think, which was the funniest part of that fight, in my opinion, was when he pulled out his special move, Bacteria
Oh
did,
jeez.
and Krillin, everyone thought he was about to pass out and just, lose, almost die, for instance. And the Goku was like, Krillin, you have no nose. He was like, wait, what? I don't, you're right. Wait a minute. And that's how he meets him. He's like, I ain't got no nose. They didn't draw me a nose. That's right. I got one. Oh, yeah. It's just humor, but the fact that they left off the nose on purpose just to use that, in the show, like I thought that was hilarious. So
Well, I see. That's what I said. It was again well written. You had your comedies, you had your action. That's why I said, for this, it's really hard to go against the classic, like Dragon Ball and be like, I mean, usually I'm real hard on some anime, like, oh man, but see at this stage, Goku ain't a dad. Goku just a silly kid, running around. Krillin's a silly little kid running around, it doesn't it's only serious when it comes to the fighting, most of
yeah.
the time. Other than that, like I said, this is like, I mean, I don't want to call it the Three Stooges of anime at that point, but it's some pretty funny, silly stuff going on. So, not to be taken too seriously, but serious enough to where you know where it's going. So that's what I got for you, Mr. Conspiracy. What else you need to talk about, Mr. Conspiracy?
I want to know from the professor's point of view, what you think was probably the weak point of Dragon Ball. I understand that we like the whole story, how they fleshed out characters, but what you think was the weak point of the show?
Yeah, I didn't really see a lot of weaknesses in Dragon Ball as far as the show was concerned. You really didn't get into a lot of weaknesses till you really got to Dragon Ball Z. I think a lot of the filler episodes just kind of came more apparent. You had filler episodes in Dragon Ball, but it wasn't, to the level of Dragon Ball Z, I feel. I thought, Bulma was a really annoying character in Dragon Ball Z. I don't feel like she brought a lot to the table. I think she kind of subtracted a lot from the storyline and kind of how they used her. That was not the case in Dragon Ball. As far as her character relationship with Goku, following the Dragon Ball. So I really didn't see, a lot of weaknesses in Dragon Ball as far as the humor, as far as the animation, as far as the martial arts, as far as the villains were concerned. Always had good villains, Red Ribbon Army, Piccolo Senior, Junior. Just how they use, eventually, Yamcha, Tien, just kind of how they used everybody. So I really didn't see a lot of weaknesses in Dragon Ball. Nothing really kind of stood out to me as far as weaknesses are concerned. Maybe you can say it was a little bit too lighthearted, maybe a little bit too kiddish. Maybe one thing you could say, but I was a kid when I saw it, so they really didn't really stand out to me that much.
All right.
For me,
DLC?
I would say it was the humor. It was a little too kiddie at times. Sometimes the silliness of it. Like again, the fight we just named with Bacterium and Krilla. Like so. Sometimes, I would say that's probably the biggest weakness of the show was sometimes it was just a little too silly. I mean, now to the professor's point, I mean he's right. Bulma serves a real purpose. Krillin serves a purpose. Yamcha serves a purpose. Tien, Chaosu, Master Roshi, Piccolo Senior. I mean, Yajirobe, they all serve purposes. So it's not like anybody's left behind. But I would say probably the biggest critique is it's silly. And I think for the times in the 80s, the late 80s when it came out for anime, you really expected more. I would say it was more like a cartoon versus anime, if anything. You know, the animation was better than a cartoon. The story was better, but it had childish moments like a cartoon. Kind of like at moments, I'm not gonna say like Animaniacs super silly, but like almost like a Tom and Jerry moment sometime. You know what I mean? Some silly moments here and there. What about you, Mr. Conspiracy? What would you say?
Let me see. For me, for that time frame and who they made it for, I can understand why it was so childish half the time. I really don't see a lot of weak points when it comes to Dragon Ball with the story, the, the animation, the flesh out of the characters, like the villains. I think my biggest thing was kind of sometimes they drug out an arc and they didn't have to. Like I think that the Red Ribbon Army was kind of drawn out way too much. Probably because I'm not sure if they really had Dragon Ball Z in mind at that point, so they was trying to just make Dragon Ball as long as possible. I thought that was the weak point there, that they kind of drawn out arcs longer than what they needed to. That they kind of went a little too long. And to me, that kind of made people feel that the show was sluggish or boring at times. Like, it's not really exciting. Like the last 3 episodes, now we're here, and it's like, Then like the next 3 episodes, because it was drug out, like an arc would actually drug out. It really drug out in the Red Ribbon arc for sure. It drug out there, and then when King Piccolo first showed up, they actually drug that out a little bit too, because that took a while to actually really get going. So I could see that as the weak point, that they drug out arcs a little too long. The one thing I didn't mind the whole kiddish part because they took deaths a lot more serious in Dragon Ball, in my opinion, than any other Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT. I felt like the deaths meant more because literally, like the Dragon Balls were brand new, and they really were not easy to just go and get. You literally had to wait a year for them to actually come back, and then it took a while just to go find them because they wasn't nearly as fast and things like that, right? So they couldn't just go get them with like instant transmission and stuff like that. It actually took a while to find those Dragon Balls, so they had to use them carefully and in emergency moments only. It wasn't just what we're going to use them anytime we want. No, like that took a toll on the actual dragon statue, using up its power and things like that. So they actually used it more responsible back then in Dragon Ball. So I really felt like that they took the deaths more seriously because of that.
Something I want to correct. So when I was talking about the amount of seasons, because I couldn't remember. So it's 9 sagas, 9 seasons for Dragon Ball. Okay, because it runs from February 26th of '86 until April 19th of '89 for Dragon Ball. So in that 3 years, they had like 100 and some odd episodes, like 153 episodes or something like that. I mean, so like they gave you a lot in them 3 years, bro. They packed it out.
Yeah.
So I mean, so I'm gonna hit y'all with something a little different. So what do you think would have happened? Okay. Now we know Goku loses his memory when he gets to Earth, because he's a little hellion when he arrives and then he loses his memory. And what do you think happens if Goku never meets Bulma and never is trained in martial arts? What would Goku be doing? You know what I'm saying? He's this
Professor, you want to
powerful
take this
warrior
one?
living in the, huh? I'm
You
not.
want to take
I'm
this one,
asking both
Professor?
of y'all. Yeah, it's both of y'all. So, what do you think would Goku would be doing in today's time? Saiyan's age slow, you know. So, what do you think happens? He doesn't meet Bulma. He doesn't meet Master Roshi. What do you think Goku's doing? He's still living in the forest by himself. Or what do you think happens with him?
Man, I
Professor, I'll
don't.
let you take this one.
All right, man. I don't. It's probably a story for where like it's more of a don't know, monster story. Eventually he's gonna look at the moon, he's gonna turn into that giant ape and go on a rampage. And so it's gonna be this, urban myth about this giant ape, wrecking stuff and all these things like that. And they'll, 2 years, later, this not 2 years later, but they'll have like some destroyed buildings. 2 years ago, this kind of happened. They'll see this big ape print on the ground, all these other things like that. And so, of course, he doesn't, remember when he turns into an ape. So he's, scared too. Everybody like, there's this ape, this giant ape monster type situation. So it'll do something like that. I don't think it'd be, of course, not as interesting as Dragon Ball, but it would have to go along those lines. Just because lost his memory, he was raised by his grandfather, didn't learn martial arts. He was told not to look at the moon, but eventually, it's going to happen from time to time, and he doesn't even really know why, because his grandfather never told him why. He told him, there's this monster that comes out, but he didn't tell him he was the monster. And so eventually, that's kind of the story that probably would have to tell. Him looking at the moon, turns to an ape, destroying things, this legend about this gigantic ape destroying stuff.
Conspiracy, what you think would happen with your boy Goku? He doesn't meet them. What happens in his world?
So I like the professor's take on it. I'm gonna go ahead and piggyback off a little bit of what he was saying. At some point, he will have to see the moon. Now, it kind of triggered like a thought in my mind with what the professor actually was actually bringing up. Because I don't ever remember them ever mentioning on how they turn back if someone doesn't beat them into submission or cut off the tail. Right? I don't know how they actually turn back. They don't never really mention that.
I guess it's as soon as the moon goes away. I would assume as the moon sets or whatever.
Maybe. I don't know if they burn
otherwise,
out.
Yeah, otherwise he'd just be stuck as an ape destroying stuff. You know what I mean? Until someone stops him. So let's say that he doesn't just turn back just because like the moon is gone, right? So someone has to actually stop him. At that point, Master Roshi would actually have to step up and be the one to actually stop him. And I think that they would fight. He would somehow beat him like he did the first time Goku actually turns into an ape at the martial arts tournament. Master Roshi was the one who actually beat him into submission with the 100 times Kamehameha wave. And so I think that would happen again, but this time he meets Goku for the very first time, right? Goku turns back into a little boy, and Master Roshi, being him, more likely might actually be the one to take him in at this point. So it might be a little bit more of a adopted father, raising a son type story instead. He looks at Master Roshi instead of a master, more like a father figure than anything, right? He had a grandpa, but now he has a more of a father figure. Master Roshi raises him at this point. So now Bulma is obsolete unless, she actually goes there now to the island to find the Dragon Ball, and that's how she meets them now, right? Krillin would eventually still come to the island for training, but this time it's a little different because Goku is seen more as a family member. He's been there for a while, being trained and being raised by Master Roshi. So that's a little bit different when it comes to them as far as being rivals, when it comes to them just training together. Krillin now has to catch up to him more than what he did at first because they were almost about even when they first met, right? So it's a little bit of a different dynamic, but I think it can still go the way of Dragon Ball like the way it did. It would just take a little longer to actually get there, or the story might actually start out a little darker, right, than how light it was. So that's my take on that DLC.
See, I would see for me when I think about him not, all the things that the plot allows him to get to where he is. See, I always think the dude would be a mass murderer with no people skills. You know what I mean? Like he hasn't really talked to humans. I mean, he can talk, but you're in isolation for so long. You know what I mean? He's more of an animal, versus more not human, but more like a person who's just been in solitude for a really long time. So, he's unhinged, he's out here murdering people. He wakes up, he doesn't know why his blood on his clothes, he doesn't know, he's out here, I think it turns more into a horror movie, versus anything else. And I think instead of Master Roshi raising him, I think he sees him and he tries to blow him away, and kill him, because this monster and this force killing people, it gets around, he's big as the force, and eventually they're going to send somebody to exterminate him. And I think it won't be Master Roshi in the beginning. They'll send some smaller people in there, and eventually they run, looking for this forest dude, and they end up getting killed. And I think Roshi steps in at that point, and then he ends up murdering him, not knowing what he is. And I think the story goes totally different, because I think it's more of a horror movie at that point. Because you got a little boy who don't know how to control all his power. He raging out, he wake up, he naked, he was a monster, he done ate all kinds of crap, he done all. So I think it's totally different. But that's me though. It's a lot of things that go well for him, or hell, I give you a better version of the story. What if he never loses his memory?
I thought you were going to go that way the first time, but you didn't.
Oh, no,
he probably just continue his mission that he was sent on, by the Saiyans to conquer the Earth. I don't think he would, just because, again, Master Roshi's strong enough to stop him. But yeah, I mean, he would probably go that route. At that point, Master Roshi would probably have to kill him, because he's programmed to take over the Earth, and I don't think anything would, determine that besides Master Roshi putting him down.
Yeah, Master Roshi or King Piccolo killing him. One of the two, because he comes if he comes a big enough threat, on Earth. I mean, but like you said, to the point, he's not the strongest being at that point in time. Roshi's stronger. Master Roshi's rival, who's training Tien, is stronger. King Piccolo is stronger. Kami is stronger. Everybody at that point. Even though he comes to Earth and he's got some level of power, he ain't the strongest being. So you're right. I think they'll, eventually he'll go on his mission, and eventually he'll have to get put down by one of those people we named to end up killing him.
Yeah, but it's pretty interesting. I think it's got a rich enough story, where Mr. Conspiracy took it. I wasn't even thinking that, when he's, he rages out, as a little kid, and, Roshi would come and find him and actually raise him, and he would be, his grandfather. He was old enough, that he would probably consider him grandfather. And here comes Krillin. I think Krillin would be, needing to catch up. So he would be like a little brother. So instead of a friend rival, it would be a big brother, little brother type of relationship. And so again, you cut out, maybe cut out Bulma. She's probably still looking for the Dragon Balls, and he doesn't get a Dragon Ball if he doesn't meet his grandfather, because that's where he came in contact with the Dragon Balls. So you don't have Bulma, because you still get the martial arts tournaments. You still get some other things that happens. It changes a little bit of things. You lose some characters. Some of the character dynamics change, but it's a rich enough story, rich enough characters. You can still have a story without him actually meeting his grandfather, and so I think that's pretty cool. DLC, to your point, if Roshi's on the island, so it's not just a given that Roshi's going to come stop him when he's a kid. If he's somewhere else, killing people, they'll send armies, things like that. And Roshi may come a lot later, to where if he's a teenager, if he's a grown man at that point, he has no socialization. He's pretty much an animal at that time. And I think at that point, he's really a villain. He's really a horror story, a villain. So Roshi or whoever, the Z fighters, got to come together and put him down.
It kind of reminds me of, I'm going to compare this to something, and that's only if you've seen. You ever see Brightburn?
Sounds familiar, but I don't.
Sounds familiar.
It's basically Bryan Singer basically turns Superman into a bad guy. Basically, is what.
Yes, that kid. Yes.
It's basically what I would think Goku would be like, kind of, sort of. It wasn't necessarily intentional, but because of the things that would happen, the transformations and stuff like that, I think he's more like Brightburn, right? He eventually, like you said, to this point, if nobody comes around and no socialization, he does become the villain. It's no love, it's no. So the dude is out here, he ain't worried about nothing, but turning into a beast and going off killing. So like I said, the story is so well written. The fact that you can take a what if and go so many different directions with it and still have a good story for Dragon Ball, I can tell you right now how well written it was, even for its time. Because like you said, you could bypass some things. You could change some things up. You could. And I've always wondered if the creator would ever do a what if story. Maybe he, what would Goku's life be like? To your point, Mr. Conspiracy or Professor, a very different outcome to the Goku we know. All the things that make him who he is and how. So because I don't know what it is about seeing a good guy be an anti-hero, a villain, for whatever reason. I think that's always cool. So
yeah,
that's me. But it's a phenomenal story, man. Mr. Conspiracy, you pick you pick the right topic. I mean, like I say, if I'm gonna tell somebody you want to get into anime, I'm giving them Dragon Ball for sure. It's up there. I don't. it's just very hard to say, something that was written, over almost 40 years ago, 30 plus, and it's still going hard to this day. A version of it still exists. I mean, you think about this, name me another anime at this point in time that's been around as long either.
I can only name one, but I don't remember when it started. I'm not gonna lie to you. I know it started after, but that would be One Piece.
Yeah,
Now,
it's not that
One
old.
Piece is 99. You talking
That's
about
that's like
99.
97?
2000s.
Okay,
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
not.
okay.
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm not a
it's got
fan,
a
so
decade on
I
it at
don't know.
least.
yeah. So I was trying to think, because the only show that would have probably hit the nail on the head maybe was Yu Yu Hakusho. I think it started. I believe it. No, Yu
No,
Yu.
no,
It
that
didn't
was in the
last long
'90s.
enough. Yeah,
Yeah, that was in the
No, no,
'90s. It
I'm
didn't last
saying the
nearly
start
long
time
enough.
though.
yeah.
It
Start
started
time.
her.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
got you.
yeah.
It
No,
just
it never
Yeah,
didn't have the
continued.
staying
No,
power.
it
yeah.
didn't have to stay. They ended the story. But when you think of the big boys of anime, I mean, this show has been around. I mean, and even though it had a stopping point, it was so popular that they brought it back. I mean,
Yeah.
the love of Dragon Ball Z, GT, Super, like the characters that we grew up with, I can show my son, these same characters. My sons can see this. So,
Yeah,
I mean, that's pretty awesome. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, on the up there anime, I mean, is definitely high up on my on a totem pole, what they've done with it and the staying power, man. I just think that speaks to the writing, man, the character development. People I mean, whether you like it or not, people love Goku or they hate him. They love Vegeta or they hate him. It's usually no in between, on the characters as they develop, because as far as me, like, it's hard not to like Goku to a degree, and it's hard not to like Vegeta. Piccolo's the same way, I love him. He was an anti-hero, even in Dragon Ball. In Dragon Ball, he really doesn't become somewhat of a good guy till way later in Z till he figure out there's some things in this world that are even beyond the powers that we have. And I need to, get strong enough to be able to fight him. Being a villain may not be the best way to get things done. So, like I said, man, look, hands down one of my favorite animes of all time. I don't think we go wrong with that. You know what I'm saying? We literally when we do part three, we'll probably pick up on what GT or something. Maybe the
I think
professor we can
GT.
convince him. We can convince the professor to watch Super so we can
watching
get
the
some
Super.
more
Yeah,
a little bit of Super. We can get some out of him because I
yeah.
like Super as well. So
I
it's
got
some cool
got a lot of
things.
bones to pick with Super. I got a lot of bones to pick with that man.
All right, man, that's gonna make for an interesting argument there. We all got something to say about that, man. But I think we at the point in the show, man, we can flip over to what's hot and what's not at this point. You know what I'm saying?
Okay,
We
okay.
we we're about at that moment. You know what I'm saying? So since again, Mr. Conspiracy, this been your world today. Dragon Ball, we kind of did you. So it's up on you on your what's hot, what's not today, man. You know what I'm saying?
Man, what's hot and what's not? Let me go ahead and take a look at this, man. I got like a huge list of stuff. Um, so let me see. Okay, so what's not? I'm gonna have to go with man. I got a bunch of dislikes. Let me see here. My wife is a demon queen, man. I'm not sure if you ever read that
Whoa,
manga, man.
whoa,
Yeah,
I
I read
whoa.
it.
can't stand. So hold on now. Let me
Go ahead.
explain. Let me explain. I can't stand that manga, right? Like he gets summoned by the queen of the demon race, and he's just a regular human. And he's basically supposed to be their savior, and turns out that he has no abilities. She basically tries to be assassinated, and they flee. Right, like her assistant sends them off, and she loses all of her demon powers, and she basically looks and becomes like a superhuman. And then they go to the human kingdom. That's where he is mistaken to be someone's younger brother. So they're kind of put into the academy by default, honestly. And that's where he becomes stronger, basically becoming Iron Man. is basically what he becomes, and then she finally at some point starts regaining back her true abilities, and then starts gaining back her demon abilities and whatnot through the academy, becoming stronger, going on different adventures. My issue is that by the time that it got long enough into the story, it just became repetitive, and he was literally just Iron Man, who could draw and bring whatever he drew to life. But like the story just became pale. Like it just became weak after they met the dwarves, in my opinion. I hated the story after that. Like there was no story after that. I was like, really? Like y'all had me into
Ooh,
this. I was
ooh.
wondering what was about to happen. Man, I hated after
Give me
that.
my
It do
trigger.
I
Give
ain't
me my trigger button now,
Yeah.
boy. You about to
Man,
set me
I
off
ain't
in
got it.
this
I ain't. You know
joint,
what? You
boy.
know what? I'm gonna
See
give
what you
you
got to
this.
say, DLC.
It's not a trigger. It's not a trigger. But I'm gonna give you this though. I'm gonna give you this.
Really, DLC? Really?
That's what I'm gonna give you. I'm gonna give you that because you
Well,
thinking
you
that's
about to
cold. You
you,
know
you
what I'm
about to
saying?
trigger. You about to trigger. We
Okay.
about to get into an argument at the end of the episode. I thought we was doing good today. I thought we
You
was
know,
cool. Conspiracy.
we
You
doing
breaking that
good.
drama.
We doing good. We doing good. I'm gonna leave it alone. I'm gonna let you plead your case at some point in time. But that's my what's not. It's garbage. After the dwarves, it's horrible. The story becomes horrible. Okay,
Okay.
he is a poor man's uh Ironheart. Yeah, there we go. I said it. Yeah, I said it.
Disrespect.
No, all
A
right.
whole bunch of disrespect on that right there.
Professor, go ahead. Actually, what's hot for you? Since you know what I'm saying, I don't want to jump into this till
Yeah. What's out for you, Mr. Conspiracy?
yeah. So
Man, I want to make sure that I get the title correct. But that time I got reincarnated as a slime.
Yeah.
That
Rimuru.
Rimuru, that is my joint. I really don't want to give a lot away. Let's just say that this dude accidentally dies on Earth, and then he basically goes to this magical world where they have all different type of races, fairies, uh,
Your
demi-humans,
typical
all that type
isekai.
of stuff. Yeah. And he basically gets reincarnated as a slime, and originally he can't actually speak. He can only think of what he's saying, but he can't actually speak. He knows no languages when he actually starts out in this world. And what happens for him is that he realizes, I can basically absorb other slimes. I can absorb animals and other beasts and kind of take over their abilities. And when he takes over this bat, he uses the bat's sound wave abilities to actually be able to talk, finally. And when that happens, he actually meets this dragon. It's the storm dragon, and that's where the story really takes off. And that's in the first episode. All this in the first episode, at least the first two. But when he meets the dragon, the actual storm dragon, that's when the story takes off. And I'm not going to say anything more. It's an actual manga. It's an anime. Watch the anime. And after you watch the anime, read the manga. It is amazing, dude. The slime is the greatest slime ever. Okay? He is the ultimate slime, and you will not be disappointed. I'm not even going to spoil nothing else for you. That's my what's hot, baby.
Professor?
Man, first, I don't. My wife is a demon queen. I actually was enjoying that manga. I have not read the entire thing. I got to a point where I caught up and I had to wait for new ones to be released. So I put it down, started reading other things, and they've had some more drops, and I just haven't really got back into it. But I really enjoyed what I had read. So it's definitely on my what's hot list. As far as the story that they told, as far as him, he used like a magic pen of stone to whatever he draws kind of comes to life. And he makes a suit, but that's not initially what he does. As far as him using his abilities, I thought, when the dwarves come into it, I have not gotten past the dwarf arc. So, if you're saying that after the dwarf arc, it kind of falls off, I have not gotten to that point. But with the dwarf arc, is hot. They're in a battle. And so right now, I enjoy the manga. I haven't really found any fault with it. The Demon Queen getting her powers back, just kind of their relationship, how things start off. So I think the story's pretty good. I definitely wouldn't put it in a what's not. I'm gonna have to pick it back up now that Miss Conspiracy says it's a not. So I'm gonna get past the dwarf arc and kind of see what I think. I don't have a what's not, thankfully. I kind of talked about, it's anime that I talked about a couple of times. That's how much I didn't like it. Um, but my what's hot is a manga I'm reading. Put the name of it. It's a solo max level newbie.
Ooh, yeah.
It's pretty hot. Like, it's so hot. It's hard for me to put it down. I've just been going through. It's where this professional video game player, YouTuber, plays this game. It goes on for like 11 years of them creating content. It's basically unbeatable. It's kind of how they made it. And so people got into it initially, first couple of years, it was just the hottest game on the planet. And then they just kind of found out, man, you can't beat this game. And so it kind of trailed off. And so he plays it for 11 years until he actually beats it. He's like the only person in the entire world or history that's ever beaten the game, but nobody knows about it. When he beats the game, it comes to an end. The next day, the video game becomes real for whatever reason. And so this tower appears, and you have to beat this tower. If you don't beat the tower, humanity comes to an end. And so it has like, I think, 100 floors. And you have like 90 days to beat each floor. If you don't beat the floor in 90 days, humanity comes to an end. And so it's like the race against time. It's not that everybody becomes awakened and get these abilities, but everybody's pretty much a player. And so the game becomes reality. So they got treasure chests, they got special items you can get to give you special abilities. In museums, ancient weapons, they become ancient weapons from the video game. They kind of morph into that. So you can go get weapons, and you can kind of get super powered. And of course, you got to go attack the tower to save humanity. And so as the guy who's the only person to beat the game, he's got all this background knowledge about, how to become stronger, how to beat the floors. And so he keeps all the information to himself. And so he's just getting leveled up, getting OP to, beat the floors. But you have to have some strategy, because each floor, the difficulty raises to a certain level, and you only got 90 days. So it's not like, if you beat, the first 3 floors and you're not strong enough to beat the level 4, you only got 90 days to level up, and maybe you can't. And so you got to be strategic about leveling up, attacking the floors. They form guilds and associations. Of course, he didn't join anything. So it's just kind of his story, him, trying to save humanity by going through these floors. They have this guild, the demonic human guild, that are, kind of against humanity. And so they're basically trying to resurrect the demon king. And they're fighting against humanity to beat the towers, because they believe, if they resurrect the demon king, even if they don't defeat the tower and the tower destroys humanity, they'll be saved. And so they're actually fighting against other humans alongside monsters and just them. And so it's him going against them. So it's a pretty cool story, man. It's hot. I mean, it's one of the hot manga I've read in a while, because I cannot put it down. I'm just going through it, man. It's pretty good. So that's my what's hot. So definitely want to check that out.
You're welcome for that, Professor.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate you sending me that, DLC. Yeah. And so I had read a couple of things before I got to that. As soon as I got to that, I was like, oh, this is hot. I can't put it down. So yeah, it's definitely hot. Yeah, that's one of the ones that, I definitely recommend it. It's not as I wouldn't say as good as Solo Leveler, but it's in that vein. I think it's up there with that. I think it's that good. So I think it's a must read. If you hadn't heard of it, check it out.
So, my what's not. Let me tell you what, boy, I found some trash this week. Boy, normally I give manga about 10 chapters. This one got 5. And that's unusual for me. It is called The Unrivaled Delinquent in Combat Has Ended Up Becoming a Healer Within the Game. And basically what it's about is this is dude, if you've ever seen Bleach, you know how his dad is crazy and he's always trying to kick him. Well, imagine that type of parenting, but the dude is training you to be a martial arts master, though. You know what I'm saying? And the dude is basically like, he's been doing Dragon Ball Z level training his whole life. Like the craziest stuff his dad could do to him, he did to him. So even no matter what he does, he's OP. Unconsciously, he will kill somebody if he's not careful. Okay? It sounds cool till you find out he gets sucked into a video game and his powers transfer over to the game. But he just wants to be a healer. And it's really stupid. Like some of the decisions the main character makes are dumb. He just wants to be a healer in the game, but he ends up using all his special abilities to not be a healer. he ended up killing people in the game because of his fighting ability. It's really stupid. I thought it was gonna be good. The first 5 chapters, it just didn't catch my attention. So that's my what's not. So now, whew, I have been triggered, family, on the Midwest Anime Show. I've been triggered by Mr. Conspiracy. So I have to combat the nonsense that came out of his mouth about his what's not. So today my what's hot is my wife is a demon queen, and I'm gonna tell you, he ain't no broke down version of Iron Man. If anything, I like characters. The way he's written is, it's like he thought he was special in the beginning, which was funny. He's like, "Don't I got superpowers? Because I got isekai." And he's like, and they found out I'm trash. I'm trash. But then when he starts drawing, he figures out ways to use his imagination. And I take issue with you call him broke Iron Man. Iron Man, you know, this is different, man. This dude's imagination is the key, which he could draw. That's what made him strong. But he also had all the strategy in the world to go along with it. You know what I'm saying? And so because he was so weak, it actually made him strong in his case because he had to think differently. He didn't have powers like he didn't have swords. He couldn't combat. So he had the greatest invention is his mind. His mind became his greatest weapon. And I think anytime he reminded me a lot of Shikamaru. You know what I mean? It took a lot of strategy and thoughts to get where he got. And if you go past the dwarf fighting, he gets even better to me. Now that's me. I understand Mr. Conspiracy got some whacked out theories. My man wear a 10-4 hat. Hence his name is Mr. Conspiracy. So you got to take it with a grain of salt. So my wife is a demon queen. Listen, read the manga. You let us know in the comments because we obviously the professor and me believe that the show is worth time. Mr. Conspiracy is crazy. So
He needs some milk.
Right. You know what I'm saying? You know, I gotta get like the woke folks in the crowd. Who hurt you, Mr. Conspiracy? Who hurt you? You know what I'm saying? Why you talking about my manga like that? Who hurt you? You know what I'm saying? But give it a shot. Let us know. Give us a thumbs up, thumbs down. You know, you like the manga. You like any of the stuff we put out here. And you know, shout out to Crunchyroll. We want to get sponsored as well. So, you know, we're gonna throw that out there. We're gonna manifest that, right? We're gonna keep manifesting that. We want Crunchyroll sponsoring the show, you know. So I mean, but that's my what's hot, what's not. You know what I'm saying? I can hear our exit music. I don't know if y'all ever heard. They trying to get us, Mr. Conspiracy trying to roll us out of here. We've been on for a minute. But
Yeah,
listen.
I can.
But listen though, we enjoyed you this week. Be back same time. Let us know your what's hot, what's not. Let us know what you're thinking of. And if you got some ideas on some shows we need to cover, please let us know. This is DOC, Mr. Conspiracy, the Professor. Shouts out to our other boy. We ain't gonna say his name because he ain't here. He ain't that cool right now. But this is the Midwest Anime Show. Get at your boys. Holla at us.
Bam, baby. Mr. Conspiracy. We out.